One of the best times of the year in horse racing as the Kentucky Derby field takes shape, and the stories that will headline the first Saturday in May begin to emerge. But this year's road to the Kentucky Derby has been affected by the dominant story in the sport for the last month, Santa Anita Park, where last year's Triple Crown winner Justify was based during his racing career, currently closed for racing until March 29th. This is because of 22 horse fatalities there between the end of December and early March, both across the dirt and turf surfaces in both racing and training. Now, last week, under intense public scrutiny, the Stronach Group, which owns Santa Anita, took aim at sweeping changes, saying in a statement, in part, quote, "What has happened at Santa Anita over the last few weeks is beyond heartbreaking. It is unacceptable to the public and, as people who deeply love horses, to everyone at the Stronach Group and Santa Anita. We are taking a step forward and saying quite emphatically that the current system is broken. While the cause of the injuries on the racetrack might be varied, they have one thing in common. The industry has yet to do everything that can be done to prevent them." Now, in the spirit of that statement, the Stronach Group's California Tracks and the Thoroughbred Owners of California came together a few days later to agree to several initiatives. Some of the most notable here include a complete ban on race day medication for all horses, starting with next year's 2-year-olds. The permitted dosage of Lasix for horses currently running has been reduced by 50%. Also, complete transparency of medical records and out-of-competition testing. Joined now by Hall of Fame jockey Jerry Bailey, Randy Moss. A lot to get into right there. So what you've seen so far, Jerry, have the proper steps been taken out at Santa Anita?
I don't know if we know that yet. Coincidentally, I was involved in almost an identical situation 7 years ago in New York at Aqueduct Racetrack. Over 20 equine fatalities due to catastrophic injuries. So I was part of a task force charged by the state of New York to find out what happened, why it happened, and how to solve it in the future. What we determined after hundreds of hours of examinations and interviews and testimony was that, by and large, it was racing horses with pre-existing injuries. Now, how does that compare with what's happening in California? Well, after talking to the Stronach Group this morning, I was wondering, in 3 weeks, when it took us 5 months, how did they come to this conclusion? How did they come to their recommendations? Well, they had reached out as soon as the situation hit critical mass to the California Horse Racing Board, which already had a study done from 2017 to 2018 about catastrophic injuries for their horses. And they deemed almost the exact same thing, that it was almost 90% due to racing horses with pre-existing injuries. There were other factors involved in both cases, but that was the main one.
And a lot of times, maybe even most of the time, those pre-existing injuries are not visible. They're very difficult to detect, even from the trainers that are with them the most. And one of the culprits could be weather. I mean, it's the most common sense culprit when you look at it. The horses, basically the caliber of the horses, about the same as they have been. The trainers are the same. But whereas the fatality rate for horses had been declining, all of a sudden now you get a spike. It's been the rainiest December through March on record in Southern California. And when you get all that rain, the way they take care of the racetrack, they compact it to try to push the water out. It's called sealing it. And it can make it very hard and jarring for the horses to run over. That could have caused some of the pre-existing conditions. So they're considering now either coming up with a different way to maintain the track when it's wet, or take, like the Northeast would, a snow day. When it rains like that much and they have a sloppy track, just choose not to run and cancel the entire car.
To their credit, New York never canceled a single day. Santa Anita has canceled racing since they hit critical mass, though.
These are pretty sweeping changes. I do want to note a couple of them. The race day medication use of Lasix, trying to phase that out, and phase out the use of the whip as well. I want to know your guys' thoughts on that.
Neither one of those really have anything to do directly with the fatality rate. It's just that racing got such a black eye nationally when this happened, and understandably so, that this is a really good PR move. It's something that I think if you were to poll the general public, they would agree with both of those. Lasix is very controversial within the industry. It's a diuretic used to help prevent respiratory bleeding in horses, which has been a problem. The U.S. is the only country in the world that races horses on that medication. And so now they're talking about standardizing it with the rest of the countries in the world and doing away with it.
All right, so the crop, the whip,
Yeah.
you know, so the new standard now in California will be, if they come to agreement with all parties involved, would be to use the riding crop only for corrective measures only. If a horse is out of control during a race in the afternoon, the jockey can use the riding crop to straighten his horse out. But no striking, no hitting. And look, 13 years ago when I retired, if you'd have asked me what I felt, I would have said, no, I need the whip. But I've changed since then. America's culture has changed. And it doesn't hurt the horse, because the way these whips are manufactured now, they're like a Nerf bat. You know, well, we think they don't hurt them.
That always kills me when people
they say
that.
They don't hurt them. We don't know. Sure. But they're much softer than they were before. However, it's a bad look. It's a bad optic. And if we say and we believe these horses are bred to run, they love to run, then why do we need to hit them? Look, they could take them away as far as I'm concerned. But they are going to leave them in place for right now. Look, in this industry, we all love our horses, the trainers, the owners, the jockeys. But we need to make sure we find a way to stop running these horses with pre-existing injuries, bottom line.
And they're going to have more diagnostic equipment and all that, and maybe change some of their procedures to try to detect some of those pre-existing injuries before the horses go out there to run.
We're possibly seeing a turning point here, some evolution in the sport that maybe hasn't changed a whole bunch in the last few years. Some of the appeal of the sport is that. We'll continue to monitor the story as our road to the Kentucky Derby rolls on.